Thank you for joining the webinar. We will be starting in 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for joining the webinar. We will be starting in 1 minute. Thank you. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining. Welcome to the ROI webinar, Demonstrate the Value of Your Investment in People, Projects, and Programs. Thank you for joining us. We have around, I can see, close to 203 registrations from around 12 countries. So we'll have to wait for more people to join in, but I'm very excited that we've got a crowd from across the globe. We have people from Kenya, we have people from Tanzania, Nigeria, South Africa, Uganda, a lot of African contingent, obviously a major portion from India. From Europe, we have Hungary, Sweden, perfect. From UAE, we have Saudi, we have Dubai, we have New Zealand, Canada, and US. So thank you so much for this overwhelming response. I still see more people joining in. Welcome to this webinar. Little bit on the logistics before we start. This is a listen only mode webinar, so you won't be able to directly talk to us, but there is a panel on the right side, which is a question panel. So if you have a question at any point in time, please put in your questions in the question panel, and we will either respond to you during the webinar or towards the end of the webinar. There is a 10 minutes time for Q&A. There is also a chat window in case something is not going as per plan, or you're not able to listen or hear us or see the picture. Just chat and somebody from operations will kind of support you. What we have seen as an experience with GoToWebinar is sometime when a poll happens and when we get back to the poll, the screen sometimes freezes for some of you. If that happens with you, you might have to log out and log it again. We are recording this webinar, so don't have to take any snapshots or screen grabs or whatever. We're going to share the entire recording to you within the next few days. So you have all the presentation and all the discussions that we did with you. So thank you again for joining. The topic that we talked today, demonstrating the value of your investment in people, projects, and program, is a very relevant one. For the last 30 years of my IT experience and other experiences that I have, this is a very, very relevant topic, and a lot of organizations talk about it. Let me just quickly also introduce who I am for people who don't know me. My name is Sunil Mehta. I look after the business of Quint in India, Middle East, and Africa. And I'm very proud and honored to have Patty Phillips also along with us, who is the CEO and founder of ROI Institute. And she's also live with us from US. Thank you, Patty, for joining us. And thank you all participants for joining. As I said, this is a very relevant topic. I've been hearing a lot of customers talking about impact and ROI and how it is so critical to us. But I've seen very few organizations really do some impact on that or really do something on the ROI. So today we're going to talk about the what, the why, and the how of the ROI, so that at least you're more equipped, you're better equipped to really go back and see how you can do it in a more structured and a real impactful manner. With that, I'll also do a quick introduction of who we are. There are three logos that you see: Quintal, Success, and ROI. I like to take a minute to explain that. This is a little bit about a journey, Quint's journey globally. We were founded in 1992 in Amsterdam. That's also the year ROI Institute was also founded by Patty and Jack, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So we were founded in 92. We were a best practice company. We were doing work on lean and agile and all the stuff on on lean IT and DevOps and ITIL and project management and stuff. In 2004, we set up the India base, and that's when we set up our offices here to look after the India, Middle East, and Africa region. 2013 is when we realized, doing a lot of work on the best practice and technology, that we have a big piece of people management missing. And that's when we introduced a division called Quint Colors. That's our division which looked after people. So we had the best practice division, we had the technology division, and the technology division basically automates the best practice procedures and processes. And we also had the colors division where we talk about the behavioral side, the cognitive side, the EQ side, and how the people's motivation and relationship would actually bring more results, bring more value to the clients. And in 2021, which is this year, we kind of rebranded that division as Tal Success, right? And so basically, Tal Success is nothing but a brand of Quint, but it's purely focused on the people side, not on the technology side, not too much on the best practice procedure process wise. And obviously, we used our 17 years of experience in India and 30 years globally to kind of create portfolios which maybe make a lot of impact for organizations like yours. And to top it all, we've also tied up with some global organizations apart from the stuff that we already do. Omnia, Talent Smart are basically into assessments on the behavioral, cognitive, and the EQ side, so that we understand when we are recruiting the people, we recruit the right people, we position them in the right, I would say, profile, so that there is longevity, the turnover is less, and people are more happy and the performance improves. Quantifract is more on the leadership side. How do we assess on leadership? How do we develop leadership in people? And we realize when we are doing DevOps and consulting, a lot of it depends on the leadership in the organization. How do you really delegate? How do you really make decisions? How do you get your team involved and work together? And that is something that really we are trying to bring on the table to some of our clients. Richardson is more specific on sales, and that's more from the sales and execution point of view. Fierce is a very interesting, I would say, alignment that we did. Fierce is about the art of conversation. And what we realized over the last 30 years is everything that you do and everything that we do is just conversation, communication, whether it is sales, it is negotiations, it is you're talking about confrontation, you're talking about personal relationship, you're talking about professional relationship. Everything is about conversation, and conversation is relationship, and relationship brings the culture of the organization. So it's pretty interesting, the models that Fierce brings on the table, and we are launching that as well. And last but not the least, but very critical, is putting all of it together is the impact that it creates for the organization. And how do you measure that? How do you measure the ROI of initiatives that you have, whether it is a digital transformation initiative, whether it is a leadership training or academy initiative that you've taken, or you've taken a new tool on assessing your, let's say, new hires, and how is it working? How much is the impact that it is able to create? What's the ROI? So ROI brings amazing methodology, which has been used, which is the highest use in the world, and we'll talk more about when Patty talks about it. But putting all of these best practices together, what's the real value? What's the real impact? What's the real ROI of those investments? And that is amazing how it brings together. We're also trying to figure out how you should improve self, how you should improve your teams, and how you would obviously at the end improve the overall organization performance. So self, teams, as well as the overall performance. And last, I'm also talking about the ROI solutions that we are bringing, which is the ROI methodology training, the ROI implementation and consulting. How can you actually use the methodology to implement within your organization and create projects about it and make it successful, and obviously create the impact that we are trying to do. So with that, I'm also give you a glimpse of the best practice and the technology rollout. So a lot of you are our existing customers, so you know what we do. So today is more on the TAL success and the ROI, but a lot of technology, automation stuff is happening. And everywhere we work, we need leadership, we need talent transformation, we need assessments, and obviously we need ROI to create the impact. And with that, I like to invite Patty. She's already on the screen. So Patty has been doing amazing amount of work. As I said, 1992, Patty and Jack, her husband, put together a company called ROI Institute, and they've been very instrumental in bringing some amazing models. Both of them have been instrumental in creating about 60 books. It's a big library with their names on it, and ROI has been mentioned in more than 70 books and has been implemented across the organization, some very good names, in about 70 countries. The books are in 38 languages, and they are a celebrity. They get covered in news very regularly. They write blogs, they write articles for news journals. And I'm very happy and proud that Patty could spare time. It's early morning for her, but could spare time to talk to us directly. So Patty, without further ado, I'd like to hand over the control to you, and welcome to this session.
Great. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and it's good to see everyone. So thank you for having me. Yes, as Anil explained, we began ROI Institute in 1992, but the process that we're going to talk about today was actually developed by Jack in the 1970s when he was a young electrical engineer. His senior executive asked him to demonstrate the ROI of a cooperative education program. Now, all of you know that ROI, return on investment, has been around for many, many, many decades. So it's not a new metric, but it was new in the space of human capital. It wasn't new, it was unheard of. You just didn't do it. So in the human capital space in the 1970s, ROI was non-existent. ROI wasn't used for marketing. ROI wasn't used, Agile wasn't even, a word. And so what Jack did in the 1970s is he developed a process, and the process includes a framework, a process model, and a set of standards that could be used to demonstrate the ROI of all types of human capital and non-capital investments. So a process that could be replicated across the enterprise. So since 1992, we have worked together to expand the use of the ROI methodology. We're going to introduce that process to you today. We work in organizations worldwide. Again, we work across the enterprise in terms of the implementation, and we could not do it without our team here at ROI Institute and our great partners like TAL Success and Quint. We work through partners in other countries, and we give them license to use our ROI methodology to help expand its application worldwide. I'd like to give a shout out to Melissa Brown. Melissa Brown's online with us. Melissa, are you there? I think she's in silent mode as well. Melissa Brown is our Director of Partnerships here at ROI Institute. So Melissa works with all the partners across the 70 countries that we touch. And we just couldn't do it without her, because she does work closely with Talent Success Quint and our other many partners to ensure that they're successful in working with their clients to implement the process. And then of course, I want to just give a shout out to Andy Vance, who's our producer here in the room. So it is a pleasure. So real quick poll. You know, we have to do with webinars, you have to do a poll, right? So quick poll, let's see who we have out there. So if we can launch the poll, and if you'll just tell us, which department do you represent within your organization? Is it business management, business excellence? Is it HR, L&D, talent development? Maybe it's quality governance, CSI, delivery operations, and other. So where are you? So if you'll answer the poll, and I'm going to rely on the team, Sunil and the team out there to let me know what you guys see. So where are we in the organization? And the good news is what we're talking about today touches all of these organizations. We do a lot of work in the CSR standpoint. ESG is big in business these days. We work with quality, and actually working with quality is one of the easier applications, because in quality we have really good metrics. Of course, HR, L&D, talent development is how we got started. In business excellence, it is all about business excellence, because as you'll see, this process is not just a process to demonstrate ROI, but to actually improve the programs and processes we're putting into place so that we can deliver greater value to the organization. So are we about done with the poll?
Yeah, so we've got 65% voted. Just spend another 10 seconds, teams, if you can quickly enter where you belong. We'll just
Wonderful.
quickly show it around. Just another 10 seconds.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so Patty, just to let you know the results, we've got about 38% from delivery and operations. We've got 34% of the people from HR, L&D, talent development, from the learning side. We've got 15% from the business management, business excellence side, and 6% from quality, governance, and CSI, and 6 others. So majorly it's delivery, operation, HR, L&D, talent, and business excellence.
Perfect, great. Well, it's a pleasure to have all of you. So it's a good distribution of representation across the organization. So I think that we can certainly provide content today that's relevant to all of you. So again, just real quick review of the ROI methodology. The ROI methodology is a framework and a process and a set of standards around which we built the business. And again, founding in 1992, but the process was actually originally developed back in the 1970s by Jack Phillips. We've been able to touch a variety of different programs and projects and different types of organizations. For example, the United Nations is one of our best largest clients. I'm fortunate and very proud to sit on the board of trustees for the UN Institute for Training and Research. So it's an organization that we really value. We're endorsed by 26 federal governments worldwide, and we work with about 300 healthcare organizations and over 150 colleges and universities. Within the Fortune 500 here in the US, we have cover about 3/4 of those organizations, and we also work with major foundations. Many of the organizations that are here today on this webinar, we have touched or we have been engaged with in some way, in some part of the world, because as Neil said, we're covering a lot of the world here in this webinar, and we're fortunate to have been involved with many organizations represented today. So we've been around. We haven't been hiding. As Neil said, we have written a lot of books on this topic, from 60, 70, I don't know, we lose count on all the different books that we've written on the topic. And it began with a book that Jack wrote in 1983. The title of the book was Handbook of Training, Evaluation, and Measurement Methods. So he began this journey of ROI in the talent development and HR space. But this handbook was the first book published, full handbook published on true training evaluation, because it looked at training evaluation through the lens of the business, not necessarily just the trainer. So this handbook really set the stage for where we are today in talent development in HR with regard to ROI. Then over the years, we developed other books that covered ROI marketing, books that cover ROI project management. We have a new book out, we came out last year called The Value for Money, and it touches all types of programs and projects across the spectrum of functions. So we write a lot of books, we write a lot of case studies, and some of which you're going to have an opportunity to read if you're interested, because we want to put the tool, we want to put this process in the hands of as many people as we can. But more important than that, we actually use it. So here at ROI Institute, we're engaged in all types of projects. We do a lot of teaching. We have a lot of resources. But as we mentioned at the beginning, we work with our partners to really reach out to those people and those organizations that the team here in the US can't touch. So we train up our folks and we get them out there, and we really have had a good time implementing this process. These are just some of the countries that we work in. Again, we work in about 70 countries. We either fly over from the US, but more importantly, we work through our partnerships, as we mentioned earlier. So these are just some of the areas in which we work. And then in terms of the fields in which we work, I mentioned earlier, we touch a lot of fields. A lot going on in the human capital space because it is so important and it's being noticed, right? So for many years, many decades, in fact, even when I was in corporate many years ago, human capital, HR, talent development, it was important, but it wasn't really seen as a strategic lever. That has changed. Corporate social responsibility is big. We know that we have to look at value from a stakeholder perspective, not just shareholder perspective. So we work in that space. We wrote the Green Scorecard in 2012. That was our first entree into demonstrating the ROI of programs and projects that touch society and the environment. It was the first one developed to show ROI. So again, a variety of different ways in which we apply the process. A question that's often asked to us is, who's really driving this interest in ROI? You know, it's just only been recent years that everything is about ROI, and it stems from that early work, 1970s, that Jack put into the process. But over the years, the interest in ROI has evolved, and it turns out that it tends to be those senior leaders that are driving the question, and we think that they're doing that. Number one is that is their interest. Right? They're not worried about activity. Activity represents cost. Costs get cut. They're not worried about activity. They're not worried about entertainment. What they're worried about is the value that the investments they're making in people, programs, and projects is really delivering to the organization. And that value can be defined as money. It can be defined as the intangibles. But in the end, they're asking a big question, and that question is, so what? We're investing in all these solutions, so what? How is it helping us improve measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation? How is it helping us move this organization forward in such a way that we can sustain a lifetime of existence and beyond? Those are the questions senior executives are asking. So when it comes to ROI, it's really those folks, those executives, those decision makers who are driving the interest in ROI. We've had this process vetted by numbers of people. Academia has vetted it, financial leaders have vetted it, chief financial officers, senior executives, and the practitioners. And that is why it has had such a long lifetime. Our ability to expand it from function to function across the enterprise is because it works, and we engage the input of those people who can help us continue to improve this process over time. Okay, here's another poll for you. So what experience, or what is your experience with ROI? So tell us, what is your experience with ROI? No experience, somebody suggested it, but we've done nothing with it. Maybe you've attempted it. Maybe you've conducted an ROI study. And then there may be those of you who wish the whole conversation would end. You just want it to go away. So what's your experience with ROI? Neil, I'll let you tell me what you see.
Yeah, so right now 12% have voted. So guys, quickly, let's make it interactive. Please submit in your comments or suggestions, an option quickly. We've got 35% now. We'll wait for a few more seconds.
Yeah. And the good news, even if you've had no experience with it, we can get you there, right? So there's a lot of ways you can build capability, and we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. For some people, yes, their senior executives ask for it, but they're doing everything they can to avoid it. If you've attempted it, we'd love to know more about what you've done. And then if you've conducted an ROI study, we'd love to hear more about that as well. And then for those of you who wish ROI would go away, we welcome you into the family as well. So it's okay. All right, let's see what we got.
Okay, we have the results. So 53% state they have no experience with it.
Okay.
21% says they have attempted it. 15% say it's been suggested, but no action has been taken. And 17% says they have conducted an ROI study. And 0% said, I wish ROI would go away. So it's an accepted norm,
Yeah,
right?
that's great. Right. So that's good news. So great. So no one wants it to go away. At some point, would love to learn more about those of you who conducted this study and hear about your experience. But for the rest of you, it sounds like there's opportunity for you, just not experienced. And that's what we're trying to do today, is just introduce you to the process. Again, it's a process that we can use across the enterprise. It's one that you just replicate over and over and over. And while yes, it is about demonstrating ROI, it's really about ensuring that our programs and projects are delivering value. But to do that, we have to continuously monitor and evaluate and assess. So it's a process improvement solution. There are three key components to the ROI methodology. The first is the framework of data. A framework of data is simply a way in which we categorize data. So regardless of your approach, if you work with business analytics, if you work with any measurement at all, talent measurement, we begin with a framework. And the framework just allows us to categorize like measures. The framework you see on the screen is our 5 levels of evaluation. This again was developed in the 1970s by Jack. And over the years, he developed the model in the 70s and the standards in the 70s. And over the years, as we conduct more studies and we do more work, we're fine-tuning some of the measures we can capture at the different levels. So level 0 is not a level of evaluation. Level 0 represents the activity in which we are investing. So when we report the number of people involved in a program, the number of projects that we're engaging in, the number of programs and projects we're delivering, the amount of money we're investing, that is all level 0 data, the inputs. So that represents the investment we're making in people, programs, and projects. Now, unfortunately, we tend to report value in terms of those level 0 data because they're easy. So I'm going to just take talent development since there's several of you out there. In your reporting, we will often see talent development report number of people, amount of programs, number of programs under development, cost per person in terms of development, and be very proud of that. Well, when we do that, when that's what we report, what we're telling those decision makers is how much we cost. If we're telling people how much we cost, they can now easily see how much they can cut and shift over to marketing. So level 0 data, while it is important and we need to know it, it represents activity. Activity represents cost, costs get cut. So we want to reposition those types of data as investments. Now to do that, we have to describe some level of a result. So the results start to evolve as we roll out our programs and projects. So level 0 is your investment, but as you roll it out, as you implement your program or project, we start to see some results come out. Level 1 are reaction and planned action, these data. These are important in that they tell us the extent to which those people involved in the program are committed to making it work. Now, granted, it depends on the questions you ask. And as I said, over the years, we're getting a little bit smarter about the data. We're really looking at relationships and the different levels and the measures and what kind of predictive validity we have. So granted, some of the questions that we ask at this level 1 are not very valuable. For example, overall satisfaction with the program. That really doesn't tell us anything. But when we ask questions around the relevance of the program to a person's job, the importance of a project to the success of that individual involved in the project, a person's intent to do what you want them to do as a result of this project, those types of measures have been shown to be predictive of use. And that's what we're looking for. We need to know that the people involved in our programs and projects are committed to making it work. They're bought into it. So these data are important because if your people are not bought into this project, if they just think, oh, it's just another project that we're rolling out because someone went to a training program, it's not going to work. So we look at level 1 data is that first level of result that tells us people are committed. They view what they're doing in this program or project as relevant. From a learning perspective, there is always learning. People need to know what they need to know. It may not be a talent development program. It could be a policy change. But people need to know what they need to know to make it work. So we've got to find out, are people able to do what we want them to do given whatever this project is? So here we may measure skills, knowledge, insight, information. We may even measure the connections they make through a networking event. So from a reaction standpoint, we learn that people are willing to do what we want them to do. From a learning standpoint, we learn that people can do it. People have to be willing and able to do what we want them to do, or it's not going to get done. And then application. Now, this is where the fun of it begins. Application data we collect after we introduce the program or project to our audience. And we want to see, are they applying the knowledge, skill, information, and insights the way we planned? So application data tell us people are doing what we want them to do. They're following the process, they're following the procedures, they're inputting the data, they're changing their behaviors. So we're measuring the extent to which people are actually applying what they now know from that project. They're doing what we want them to do. But the next question is, okay, so what? You know, it's really not about what people do. It's about the consequence of what people do. So what? They've changed their behavior. So what? They're following the process. How much improvement are we seeing in measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, innovation? And how much of that improvement is due to that program or that project and not something else? And that's our step to isolate the effects of the program. Many people will push back and say, you can't do that. Well, we've been doing it since the 1970s. It can be done, right? We can isolate the effects. We can create prototypes. So those of you who work with sprints, you work with design, you're working agile, you go through your design process, you create a prototype, you test your prototype, and you compare results of the prototype to those people not involved or to the measures not involved in the prototype. It's comparison group. We've been doing it forever. It's not new. Sometimes you can't do that. We may look at trend line analysis. We may use our analytics, and sometimes we may just go ask someone what caused it. The point is there's a way to connect improvement in these business measures to your program. We just have to sort out what's the best approach given what we're trying to accomplish. Business impact data answer the so what question. So what? People are doing what we want them to do. How's it improving the measures that matter to the organization? And then ROI answers the question, what's it worth? You may implement a new process and you may see productivity improve 75%. Well, what's it worth? It's worth $750,000. Okay, how much did it cost us to implement that process and save $750,000. Well, if it cost you $1 million to save 750, was that a good investment? Of course not. You spent more than you made. But if you save $750,000 and only spent $425,000, now you've got a positive return. So the ROI is telling us, is it worth it? Do we get more benefit than cost? And we do it in a single metric. So when we talk about ROI, and all of you know, there are many measures that describe economic value add. But when we're talking about it at a micro level, a project level. We're not looking at EBITDA. We're not looking at net income for the organization. Those are macro measures. We're looking at that project investment level. And there are two measures that work regardless of the type of program or project. And this is why we can work across the enterprise, because we're using the same process, the same standards, and the same measures to demonstrate the ROI. The first is the benefit cost ratio. The benefit cost ratio is the output of cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis has been around for a long time. We traced it back to the 1600s when Sir William Petty found the cure for the plague, resulted in an 84-to-1 benefit cost ratio. That's an 8,300% ROI, as you would expect if you're curing the plague, right? So benefit cost ratio comes from public sector. It's grounded in welfare economics. Public finance is a public sector metric. Here we take the benefits of our program, so $750,000 saved, and compare it to the cost of the program. The output is a ratio. ROI, on the other hand, comes from business. The classic formula is earnings compared to investment. But here, because we're not always selling, we're not always generating revenue, much of what we do is cost savings, cost avoidance, we're going to use the net benefits. So here we just take benefits minus the cost divided by the cost. So your net benefits is your benefits minus the cost divided by the cost times 100. The output of this is a percentage. So BCR is a ratio, ROI is a percentage. The two measures are somewhat related, yet the output is different. Tells you something similar, but it's still different. So we're going to give you a shot at this. You know, I can't do a session. I'm sorry, Sunil and team at Tal Success. When you're working with me, you have to do math. So we can't do this without a math problem. So here it is. All you have to do is take a look at the formula and calculate for us the BCR and the ROI, so we can take a look at the comparison. So again, BCR is 750,000. Cost of the program is 425. To get to the 750, we're going to convert our measures to either profit, cost savings, or cost avoidance. So 750, and then your cost is your fully loaded cost. Your ROI is going to be the net benefits compared to the cost times 100. So I'm going to pop a poll that has options for you. All you have to do is calculate it and select what you believe is the best combination or the correct combination in terms of benefit cost ratio and ROI. So which one is correct? So if you can put the poll up, and let's give them a chance to select. It's the only math problem for the morning or for the afternoon.
Okay, the poll is up.
Wonderful. We'll give them just a second to do their math.
Okay, we've got 8% done. We're supposed to be geniuses in maths.
That's right. Let's see.
Yeah.
See how we do. This is as hard as the math gets too, folks. So those of you who are new to ROI, doesn't have to be hard. This is about as hard as it gets. And if you have no idea, you can select that option too. We don't know who you are, so that's good. We just want you to vote.
Okay, we're collating the results. This is interesting. So 46% say 1.76 and 76%.
Okay.
I think that's the right answer. But 26% said I have no idea. Okay. And 14% also did BCR in a percentage. BCR is always a figure, a fraction. And 6% got the first one. PCR is 76 and ROI is 176%. So we got a little bit of a mixed reaction on that. But I think
All right.
the calculation is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And hats off to those who owned up to having no idea. So we appreciate that. Okay. Here's the correct answer. Your BCR should be 1.76, and typically it's going to be written as you see on the screen, 1.76 to 1. That tells us for every $1 we invest in a program or project, we get $1.76 back in gross benefits. So that $1.76, that 1.76, that includes the investment. Now the ROI represents the net, and it's reported as a percentage. The net means we're going to remove the cost. So the 76% ROI tells us for every $1 we invest, we get the dollar back plus an additional 76 cents. It's 76% return on the investment. So 76 cents over and beyond the dollar. We like to show these two measures together because there is sometimes confusion around it. We will see some people report an ROI, they'll take the 1.76 times 100 and then report a 176% ROI. And I think you all are nodding your head saying, yes, we see what's wrong with that, right? Because they are different. They're related measures. We're going to get there the same way, but the formulas are different. So again, 176 tells us for every $1, 1.76 tells us for every $1 we invest, we get $1.76 back in gross benefits. A 76% return on investment tells us for every $1 we invest, we get the dollar back plus an additional 76 cents. So different types of data. We start with that level 0, the investment. We roll out the program. We look to see, are people buying into it? Do they intend to do what we want them to do? Do they know how to do what we want them to do? Are they doing it? What's the consequence of their doing it, and what's the ROI? So the question is often, well, how do we ensure that our programs can deliver a positive return on investment? It begins with aligning those programs with the business. And to do that, we simply use the same categories, the same framework as the basis for asking questions up front prior to investing in a solution. And you'll see this here. This is our alignment model. Before we ever invest in a program or project, we have to get clarity on why we're doing it. Why are we investing in this program, project, or initiative? The why is not because people need to change behaviors. The why is not because people need to learn skills. The why is because there's an opportunity for the organization to make money, save money, avoid cost, and do some greater good while making money, saving money, and avoiding cost. Now, a lot of people will say, Patty, you're too focused on the money. I am focused on the money, and here's why. We can't do good in this world unless we have the resources to do it. And for whatever reason we did it, we decided money is the mechanism for trade. And so we've got to have the monetary resources to do it, or you can't do good, right? So we're going to do both. So here we're going to look at the payoff. What is our opportunity to make money, save money, avoid cost, and do some greater good? And then what are the specific business measures? Those measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation that need to improve, that if we improve them, will allow us to take advantage of this opportunity. And then we sort out, well, what is it that needs to happen? What needs to change? What do we need to start doing or stop doing that if we do it will help us improve the business measures? And then what is it that people need to know to do what we want them to do so we can improve the business measures and take advantage of this opportunity. And then we say, how best can we roll it out, whatever the project is, so that people buy in, they learn what they need to know to do what we want them to do, so we improve the business measures and take advantage of the payoff opportunity. And then your input needs is just project management. Who needs to be involved in this solution so that we can roll it out, they buy in, they learn what they need to know, they do what we want them to do so we can improve the measures and take advantage of the payoff opportunity. And from there, that's our assessment. From there, we can answer the question why we're implementing this program in the first place. And then all we have to do is develop specific measurable objectives and design the solution around the objectives, including that ROI objective. Use the objectives the way they were intended to be used. By definition, an objective is an intended outcome. This is what we want to achieve. Now design that solution around it. The other benefit of developing these really powerful objectives is because it makes the evaluation process easier. From here, we roll out the program, and then all we have to do is collect data to see if we achieve the objectives. People think demonstrating ROI is difficult. It's not, if we know why we're doing what we're doing in the first place, because this is where we set our measures. We quantify the needs, develop your objectives, design around the objectives, and then evaluate to see if we actually achieve the objectives. The good news is that we're not going to evaluate every program and project to ROI. You can, it just doesn't mean you should, right? It's just growing up our parents. Now, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Same thing with ROI. We can do it. The question is why? Why are we doing it? What is the purpose of the program, the purpose of the evaluation? So what you see on the screen, and you will actually get a copy of this research report. We did do a benchmarking study of our users every few years. And so what we recommend at a minimum is that 5% of your programs or projects should be evaluated to ROI, because there are probably 5% that are really worthy of that type of evaluation. From an impact standpoint, we recommend that at least 10% are candidates to evaluate to impact, because about 10%, if we work off Pareto principle, 10 to 20% of what we do is driving 80% of the organization's outcomes. So we say at a minimum 10% impact, 5% ROI. About 30 to 50% application, let's evaluate them to application. 80 to 90%, let's evaluate to learning. All of them we need to evaluate to reaction level, because we need to make sure people are buying into what they're doing. So this middle column are our recommendations. So if you look at all the programs that you own in your function, so whether you're with the HR and talent development or with business operations, whatever, wherever you are, look at all the projects you have. About 5 to 10% meet the criteria for ROI. About 10 to 20% are good candidates for impact evaluation. Now on the right-hand column on this table, these are the results of our most recent benchmarking study. And what we found is that the actual number, I guess the actual frequency with which programs are evaluated at the different levels exceed our benchmark or exceed our targets. So you'll see that we have about 80%, this one doesn't exceed, right? About 80% of our programs, or the programs of those responding to our benchmark study, are evaluated at the action level. The reason that we found through the research that they're not evaluating 100% is that in many cases, they're seeing so much consistency, it's not changing. We still think, take a look at the questions you're asking, right? You need to know if people are bought in. 70% go to the learning, but you see these higher levels, there are many more being evaluated at higher levels than even our minimum target. And this is good news, because this is telling us that people are looking at programs and projects from an investment standpoint. They're looking through it from a different lens. We're not doing so much of the nice to have, but what we're really doing are those things that matter most to the organization. These are the criteria that we use to help clients determine if their programs are candidates for ROI evaluation. So typically we look at big, expensive initiatives. Again, those programs and projects that are aligned with the business. They are tied to strategic goals, operational goals. Top executives are interested in the evaluation and the outcomes. Visibility of the program, the big highly visible programs are good candidates for ROI. So good news for you is not everything's a candidate for evaluation to ROI. You can do it, but it's not about what you can do, it's what you should do. In terms of the process, so we begin with the framework and then we have a process. You know, it was W. Edwards Deming, the father of total quality management, who told us if you can't explain what you do as a process, you don't know what you're doing. So process models help us explain exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. They also help explain what we did and how we did it once we report the results. So we need a process. So this is our 12-step process. You'll receive a copy of a tool called ROI Methodology 12 Easy Steps, our application guide, and it describes this process. We start with why, that is our payoff needs and our business needs. We work through the process to determine what is happening or not happening, that if we change it, could help us improve the measures, and then what are the right solutions? So we sort out the right solution, we set ourselves up for success with those objectives, and then we roll out the program. We collect reaction and learning data as we're implementing the program, and then we follow up to see, are people doing what we want them to do? Are those business measures improving? Is it really sticking? And then through the analysis, we're always going to take that step to isolate the effects of the program, answering the question, how much of the improvement is due to your program and not something else? We convert measures to money so we can calculate the ROI. Some measures we choose not to convert to money. We report those as intangible. We bring in our costs, calculate the ROI, report it out, and then we use the data. If you ask a question, use the information. We have to optimize the results, use the data so we can improve the programs and processes. And all of this is supported by a set of 12 guiding principles. These are our standards. You know, as W. Edwards Deming, the father of total quality management, also told us, a process without standards is not a process. Standards help ensure that we implement the process consistently. It's all about replication and reliability. The process and the standards help ensure the data we report in that framework are reliable, and it gives us credibility. In terms of the ROI, on the ROI, many organizations will ask us to help them demonstrate the ROI on the ROI methodology because it too is an investment. It doesn't have to be that expensive an investment, but it is an investment. So the question is it really worth it? And our response is, well, of course it is, as many organizations will attest to over the past 30 years, which we've been working with them. These are some of the benefits that we've seen from implementing the ROI process. It goes anywhere from defending a budget to making the business case for a new budget to eliminating programs that aren't working and reallocating the resources to those that are. When we do, I just want to speak to that, when we do see the negative ROIs, okay, because some of you may be saying, oh my goodness, my programs, we know they're not delivering. The negative ROIs are not necessarily bad news. Now, they may be bad news to the decision makers. You want to know that they're negative. And the reason is that sometimes our negative doesn't mean the elimination of the program. We can use ROI for that reason, but it doesn't always mean we're going to eliminate it. What it's going to tell us is that we need to look at this closely to see what we can do to improve it. That is another benefit of this process. It's not all about the money, it's about process improvement. In terms of reporting out, we report results in a variety of ways. We tell the story in a compelling, credible way. We look at scorecards and dashboards and detailed reports, but in the end, it's all about the story you tell. And then these are some of the myths that we see in terms of ROI. People will say it's too complex, it's too expensive, management's, you know, not asking for it, so why should we do it? These are myths. ROI is a passing fad. Jack was doing it in the 70s. It's not gone anywhere. All you have to do is look at the billboard or listen to your radio, your satellite radio, and hear ads about ROI. It's not going anywhere, right? We've got to demonstrate value for what we're doing. Doesn't mean you're going to calculate ROI on everything, but we've got to demonstrate value that resonates with the decision makers. In terms of complexity, I just showed you, it's a framework, it's a model, it's standards. The key is in setting up our programs and projects to deliver that kind of value, and then just evaluating to see if in fact you achieved your objectives. Again, just some of the monetary benefits of investing in the program. It's improving in program effectiveness, improving efficiencies, expanding those successful programs. And in the end, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are implementing programs and projects that deliver value. It's not about doing ROI studies. It's not about program evaluation. It's about delivering value. But to deliver value, we have to do assessment, measurement, evaluation. Otherwise, we don't know if we are. These are some ways to learn about the ROI methodology, and Tal Success is here to help you. We've got briefings, we've got workshops. The most comprehensive solution we have is our certification. Our certification is a process where you actually bring a project to the program, learn the process, but as you're learning the process, you're applying the process to your project. Then you take your project back, implement the project, and we're here to coach you all along the way. So a lot of ways you can learn more about this process, and Tal Success and Quint is the partner of choice to help you do that. So, final poll question. This is the big one. Are you interested in knowing more about the ROI methodology? You're interested, please share details. Maybe you're interested in the ROI implementation workshop, please share details. And maybe you're interested in working on a business case for ROI. We loved making the business case for ROI, right? If you are, let us know. And if you're not interested at this moment, that's okay. That's what these briefings are for. So let's launch the poll and see what kind of results we get.
Yeah, so we've got 20% people who polled. So let's speed it up. I'm just holding on a lot of questions, Patty. If you guys have questions, put it in the question panel. We also have a surprise. Patty will be sharing all the tools that we talked, a lot of tools towards the end as well. So just hold on for another few minutes. If you can quickly do this poll, then we get into the next surprise.
That's right.
Now we've got about 50% done. So yeah, I know it's evening. Just do it quickly so that we can go on to the next section. We've got 60%. We'll wait for a few more seconds.
Stay on so you can get the prizes, guys. So don't drop off. No, it's late.
Okay, so let's move on to the next session. So we've got the details, Patty, I'm going to share with you. So let's move on. As I said, I'm holding on questions. So please continue.
Okay, so these are the resources or the services that we at ROI Institute provide, and they're the same resources that or services that we have partnered with Tal Success and Quint Consulting to provide. So there's consulting and teaching and speaking and writing and research. So all of this ensures that you get the most value from the ROI methodology and Tal Success and ROI Institute possible. Now here's the big surprise, everyone. Take your picture, take a scan of the QR code. This is going to get you to some resources. The application guide. We have a tool called the alignment conversation. If you remember the V model that I shared with you, you might use that tool. It gives you some key questions you can ask prior to investing in a solution, as well as key questions you can ask on the back end when you're evaluating it. We're also offering a chapter from our book, Value for Money, that describes the methodology. And there could be other surprises here too. So just take a look. You will have to register. We appreciate you registering for it, but take a look, scan the code, download your resources. And if there's anything that we can do to help you as you move on your ROI journey, please let us know. So we'll wrap it up for a couple of minutes. Any questions out there?
Yes, yes, Patty, there are a lot of questions. So I'm going to take a few. So with just a few minutes. So one of them is that we talked about benefits and we talked about a dollar value associated with the benefits. If it's a multi-year project, right? It's a multi-year initiative. First is, how do you really quantify these benefits? Because some benefits are quantifiable, some are not. So first, how do you quantify? And second, how do you do it over the years? Do you wait for the end of the 5-year or 3-year or 1-year initiative? So that is one of the questions.
Yeah, it was a great question, right? So in terms of quantifying the measures, what we typically look at is first standard values. So it depends on what the measures are. Standard values we have if we're working with quality, if it's time savings, if you're working with production, if you're working with sales. So there's monetary, typically organization has standard values. You may not have those values in your function, but there's someone in the organization that likely does. So the first thing we'll do is look for standard values. If we don't have standard values, we may go to historical cost. So those measures for which you may have a receipt. So expense account violations, for example, that might be an issue you're trying to address. There you just look at the average overage on the expense account. So there's a record. We'll use databases. We do a lot of work with databases. Organizations have internal experts that may have the values. So the values are out there. At a minimum, we will go get estimates from those people closest to the measures. Now, that doesn't mean that, or I guess I say at a minimum, at very worst case, we'll go get estimates. That's a fallback position. And we will do that if we really want that monetary value. But for some measures, if it costs too much to convert it to money, so it's going to be too much rigor, it's going to cost us too much, or if we're not comfortable that senior leaders or the client is going to fully buy into that value, then we'll leave it as an intangible. And then sometimes measures are just good enough as intangible. But typically we can find a way to get to monetary value for many measures. In terms of long-term projects, you don't want to wait 5 years to show the ROI, right? I mean, there may be a reason to wait to show the ultimate ROI, but 5 years is a long time to run a project anyway, because things change. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, who knew 2020, 2021 we'd be doing this all the time. So 5 years is a long time. You can collect data along the way. And then also what we will look at is the components of the project, because there may be a single component within that project that is really delivering the business value. So you might do the ROI on that component. So it depends on the project. But 5 years is a long project. So while you could do it, and we have an example of one that was a 3-year, it was a master's degree program, it was a 3-year project where they waited to show the ROI after 3 years, they could have demonstrated the ROI along the way. Does that help?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Patty. Another one quickly is, there are some projects, especially in India, when we have a lot of IT setups, they do a lot of some projects which are more on the business continuity management, disaster management, in case it happens, but the investment is quite high upfront. So what would be a methodology, or what would be approach to look at ROI for such projects which might happen or might not happen? And if they happen, it's a really big disaster, right?
That's right. Yes. So it's all about risk, right, and cost avoidance. So it's classic cost benefit analysis. It's feasibility of investing in it, in hopes that you invest in hopes that nothing happens, but it's that safety that you have. So your insurance policy. So yeah, in terms of that, we work at cost avoidance. So we look at, well, what would be the consequences of not doing this? And then based on the consequences of not doing it, what's the value of that? So we implement we did a big study with one of our with the U.S. Air Force many years ago. It was information assurance program, so it's a big implementation. And while they had some problems with people hacking into the systems, in the end, it did show a positive ROI because it reduced the hacks, but a lot of the basis for that was that cost avoidance. So we look at, well, what would be the cost to us if we didn't do it? And that becomes your benefit. Cost avoidance is much softer than cost savings because you haven't run into the problem, but that's classic cost benefit analysis. So just looking at what would happen if we didn't and then comparing that to the cost of the implementation. And that's where we often get in, especially the big projects, we often start looking at some different scenarios to make sure we're not over-investing or under-investing. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks. I have a question from Andreas. He talks about more on the mental health issues, like we've got a lot of pressure, working from home, multitasking, everything thrown together, especially in the last couple of years, and the work balance and personal balance is all kind of crazy. So how do you really calculate that, or how you make it more tangible in the ROI calculation?
Right. So, mental health, psychological safety, all these things that we're all grappling with today are so important. And sometimes we may look at those types of initiatives that manage that. Now, managing and measuring mental health is a different beast altogether. How do you know? But if you even just look at your engagement data, your employee engagement data, there are measures there that can indicate something's going on. They feel disconnected, for example. They're not involved in programs and projects. All of that are indicators that there's something going on with your people that's not quite right. So what we may do is look at what is the consequence of that. Are we seeing productivity wane? Are they not as productive? Are they making more errors? Are they flight risk, right? So we often look, especially on the people side, we'll look at those preventive measures. So when we're doing our analytics, is there a potential flight risk here? And then if they leave, what is the cost of turnover? So again, it's a little bit like the previous question. You want to avoid that. Network analysis, it helps us a lot with that. So I don't know if all of you are doing network analysis inside the organization, but network analysis can give us an indication of, are people, overworked? Is there too much collaboration or not enough collaboration? So we'll look at, what are the potentials? So again, sometimes we do see a decline in the productivity and the quality of work. Let's see what we can do to help our employees so that they become more productive and feel more productive. But then also we will look at the risk associated with some of the issues that we're seeing today. So.
All right, Patty, thank you so much. I have still around 18 more questions, but I don't think we will be able to handle it now. We ran out of time. So I'd like to thank Patty, you, for your time. I know it's early morning still, so thank you so much for taking time, and the entire team of ROI Methodology who supported us. Thank you also to Quinton, Tal Success team, marketing team, for making this happen, and to make it happen, and also all the multiple calling and mailing that we had bombarded all of you to attend this session. So thank you so much for attending. I would write to you one-on-one for the people who have not yet received their responses. So I will check with Patty on the question and let you know the answers. So don't worry, we will not miss it. And as I also said, I see some people are talking about getting the presentation. So as I said, we're recording this. We will send you the recording post this session, not today. We're going to look at it, and probably in a few days you'll receive it along with your responses. So thank you so much, Patty. Thank you so much, Tal Success and Quinn team. And thank you all the participants for being there for that 1 hour. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.